That's a little rocky theme to get us going here on the first official Daily Ramble here on ramblingsports.com. I am your host, Karl Schoening. I'm happy you joined us this evening, or if you're listening to this at a later time, maybe tomorrow morning or whenever it might be, maybe even it's a couple of years from now. I am happy that you tuned in here to the first edition, the first official edition of the Daily Ramble podcast. And I'll be honest, I'm excited. This is my first show on my own. I have usually had some guests. I'm going to try and get some guests. The more the merrier, as I like to say. I can have on 3, maybe 4 people every now and again. And I think we've had on as many as 5 or 6. But today is the first official Daily Ramble, and I hope that I can make it a daily habit. The last few haven't been so daily. They've been kind of scattered around. In fact, at one point I was just like, why don't I just call this the Sports Ramble? But I liked the Daily Ramble, and I like to ramble a lot, so I think I could do this habitually on a daily basis. So definitely fun time here for me. I'm just getting this site going. I'm happy if you've checked it out and if you've liked it. I know I kind of started a little bit late tonight, but it is going to be a good show, I promise you that, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. We are starting off with the NFC East, and oh my goodness, what a mess. What a mess that is. I mean, if anybody watched that horrific Cowboys-Eagles game this past weekend, I'm sorry. Probably the highlight of the game was actually when Troy Aikman said somewhere around, I think, the third quarter, this has just been a terrible game to watch. And then the next lines out of Joe Buck's mouth were, and as you say that, we welcome in a new audience because the previous game on Fox had ended, and that was America's game of the week for most of America, but I guess other local areas were, I think it was the Jacksonville game, playing that game. So you went from going to one game, and as soon as you tune it on, Troy Aikman's like, this has been a terrible game, and it was a terrible game. Oh, my goodness. The Eagles only scored 10 points. The Chip Kelly high-powered offense, quote-unquote, high-powered, only scored 10 points, and that 7 of those came off at the very end of the ball game, kind of an irrelevant score. And honestly, the Cowboys didn't look that much better. They have their own issues to deal with now. The Cowboys actually look like the best team in this very weak division, even without Dez and without Romo. It's kind of something I wrote about. You can check it out on the website right now. I go into what a mess this division is, and it's probably the weakest division in football. But we're talking about 4 major markets here, so you're going to hear all about the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants, and the Washington Redskins, because those are just major media markets. They're going to be all over. They're going to get major airtime on ESPN and Fox Sports Live. All kinds of outlets are going to cover the daily dramas that go on with these teams more so than other teams because, let's be honest, most people really care about what's going on in this division, and it's going to be entertaining for all of the wrong reasons. We have the Dallas Cowboys who just traded for Matt Castle because they really don't know what they're going to get in Brandon Weeden, and they don't really have any reliable options there. The Dallas Cowboys also let DeMarco Murray go, and they're doing this running back by committee thing, and I kind of think that it's okay. They do have the best offensive line in the league, if not the best, probably top 3. That's going to be hard to argue. And that's where we kind of have to look into what we're going to really talk about with the Dallas Cowboys. Their offensive line is going to have to carry this team. You know, it was well touted last year that DeMarco Murray may have had a lot of success because of the holes that he was given from that offensive line. And now we're going to have to see if Brandon Weeden can have the success with this offensive line because, let's be honest, that's his main problem. He doesn't handle blitzes well. He might not be able to pick them up. Brandon Weeden is a slinger. He was one of the best slingers that you saw in college in the recent history when he had Justin Blackmon to throw it to over at Oklahoma State. They were the highest-ranked Oklahoma State's ever been. People were talking national championship for the Oklahoma State team over in Stillwater. But they had that one loss to, I believe it was Iowa State, the Cyclones in Iowa State on I think it was a Friday night game. It was kind of a weird situation. Also, there was a plane accident with officials from Oklahoma State that week that kind of like threw off the emotions of the team. There was a lot that went into why that Oklahoma State team wasn't successful as they should have been. But they were a very talented team. And Brandon Weeden, while he, doesn't have much experience, he's going to get a lot of experience here. And that's kind of the main issue. We haven't really seen what Brandon Weeden can do when adjusting to the NFL speed. Let's be honest, Weeden hasn't really had too much of a chance. He was on the Cleveland Browns to start his career. And as Johnny Manziel, and I think somewhere around 23 the number is up to, 23 quarterbacks can tell you, the Cleveland Browns is just where quarterback talent goes to not look good. They don't really ever have a good core of receivers. They don't really ever have a good running game if they do have good receivers. The offensive line is always mediocre. I think it's somewhere in the middle of the pack and never really improves and never really doesn't. So that's really where Weeden kind of has the majority of his snaps, and that's not fair. Colt McCoy went there. He was the all-time winningest quarterback going into the NFL from college. He went to work at Texas and then come to the Cleveland Browns, and sorry. That's a career halter. Any success you had before does not matter to the Cleveland Browns because you're probably not going to be that good. Everybody's win percentage goes down when they enter the NFL, but you have to be prepared for it to really drop when you go to the Cleveland Browns because that franchise is just cursed. I don't know what else to tell you. It's as a self-admitted Johnny Manziel fan, I watched the Cleveland Browns more than I've ever watched the Cleveland Browns or expected to watch the Browns last year, and it was hard. It was really hard to watch them. They have some loyal fans that are really just out there supporting a team that hasn't been that good. And, that's just life as a Cleveland sports fan in general. But that's the last chance that we saw Brandon Weeden get, really. Now he's going to be the starting quarterback on America's team. So we'll have to see how he does. He doesn't have Des Bryant to throw to. Jason Witten is questionable. I think Witten's going to go because he's a real tough tight end there, and he's a professional, and they're going to let him rest throughout the week. As long as he's able to run routes on Sunday, then he should be good. But Brandon Weeden's going to get his first action. It seems like he's going to get a lot of action because Matt Castle is not really a good option. They were just desperate for a backup quarterback, and they needed to give up something to get – you need to give up something to get something back in trades. You can't just take on a player. So they gave up basically the very lowest thing they can give up, a 7th-round pick, the final round of the draft for Matt Castle, because Tyrod Taylor has kind of emerged over in Buffalo, and they already have E.J. Manuel there, so Matt Castle is kind of looking like the third-string quarterback. They're going to bring in Matt Castle in Dallas just in case Weeden goes down, because if Weeden didn't go down, or if Weeden went down, I should say, then Matt Castle, he's your next option. If you didn't trade for him, I don't know if anybody played quarterback in high school on that team, but that certainly isn't going to cut it in the NFL. So it's not looking good for the Dallas quarterback situation. But Weeden, I actually do believe in. I think he's going to tread water for the Cowboys. That's going to be what he needs to do because the rest of the division is not taking off. Move over to the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a lot of problems. I think Chip Kelly may have outsmarted himself. He might have thought that the NFL game, football is football, and the NFL game is close to NCAA, and it's not. It really isn't. The main problem with that is that he was getting rid of all the good players. And, that's a problem because players win in the NFL. System is what won him games, Chip Kelly, at Oregon. Get good athletes, plug them into your system. You're in the Pac-12. You're Oregon. You have the nicest facilities. You're going to recruit better athletes than the rest of the Pac-12. And if you're going to have your players in the best condition as well as having the best athletes, then yeah, you're going to win a lot of games. NFL, they're all great athletes. the Eagles are probably still the best conditioned team in the league, but we're talking about a team that changed their identity. They don't have much chemistry going on. They have a new quarterback. They have a new running back in DeMarco Murray. They actually have two new running backs if you add Ryan Matthews in there. They lost their best receiver who, I think a lot of people really like Deshaun, but what Deshaun Jackson does, he's properly named Jackpot because he can really be a dominant player on the stat sheet or he can be a bust on the stat sheet. But what he does was he had that speed to take a safety away, and that just opens up so much more of the football field for passing. It's not a coincidence that Deshaun Jackson had a great year, and so did Riley Cooper. Because that first year, Deshaun Jackson was really making the secondary work, and Riley Cooper was able to get some things going. Take away that guy who, really presents a deep threat like Deshaun Jackson, who is probably one of the fastest receivers in the league, and, that's just the situation there where the defense is like, wow, our job's just got a lot easier. Whatever defense goes up against the Eagles is probably really happy that on top of all of those fast plays that they have to deal with, they don't have to deal with anybody that's constantly a deep threat. And really, I didn't like the Deshaun Jackson move. I didn't really like the Sam Bradford move for Nick Foles. I liked the idea of, working with the Rams because if they had gotten Sam Bradford and moved up to that 10th overall pick, I thought that was well on their way to go ahead and get Marcus Mariota, who would have been great. Honestly, the Eagles just have a lot of problems right now, and Evan Mathis being gone is part of it too. They don't have much of an offensive line. Their interior offensive line is struggling right now. The Dallas defense was able to get into the backfield without breaking a sweat. Honestly, that's just a problem. Whenever they tried to get it to Sproles to go on the outside, Sean Lee was there to meet him. That's something that they need to work on, and I'll be honest with you right now. We talked about the Cleveland Browns earlier, and it's kind of unrelated, but if I were the Eagles, I would see what the Browns want for Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel fits in so well with Chip Kelly's offense. He recruited him at Oregon. He even got him committed at Oregon. The Eagles need a quarterback right now. As much as I hate to say it, Mark Sanchez is probably actually their best bet. And Sanchez hasn't done much since he led his team to back-to-back AFC title games. They didn't make it to the Super Bowl either of those times, but Sanchez's first 2 years were the best times he's ever had. Ever since then, it's kind of been bad. He even got famous for the butt fumble. More people might know him for the butt fumble than back-to-back AFC championship games. So that's kind of where we stand with the Philadelphia Eagles. They need to find some better options. I'll be honest with you, Sam Bradford is not a winning quarterback. It's really funny that Sam Bradford was on the team the same time as Tim Tebow. I used to say, before they were even on the same team, Tim Tebow is not a good quarterback, but he's a winning quarterback. Sam Bradford is a good quarterback, but he's not a winning quarterback. And honestly, that's kind of just the way football goes sometimes. I kind of wish that Tebow were on the Eagles because he offers something that is very unique. And if Chip Kelly could have gotten some stuff going, who knows? That could have been really interesting to see what he could have done. But, Tebow has the reputation of not being a great practice player. He has a good reputation of not being a good first three quarters player. And I guess they kind of didn't see what they wanted to out of the playing time Tebow got in the preseason. So there goes Tebow's opportunity. But the Eagles need to do something. They really do. A friend of mine was talking about this. He's a big DeMarco Murray fan from when he played at the Cowboys. And he made a really good point to me. They need to start going under center. I think that would make Bradford a little more comfortable doing a three-step drop. I think having DeMarco Murray a little bit closer will give him a little bit more time to read running lanes before they get clogged up and before people can get into the backfield as he gets to be a little bit closer to the offensive line and run out of the gun for Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews. But yeah, I don't think that there's a really good situation there for DeMarco Murray out of the gun. I don't really think that Sam Bradford is fit to run out of the gun. He's a pro-style offensive quarterback. And those are kind of the problems right now. it's not even the fact that you're messing with a lot of chemistry. You have interior linemen who they probably didn't know if they were going to be starting going into training camp, and now they are. You have a situation where quarterback is trying to learn a completely new system from where he's been at Oklahoma, and for both DeMarco Murray and for Sam Bradford, they ran out of the eye. DeMarco was basically dealing with a quarterback under center most of the time over in Dallas. This is new offensive territory for these guys, and that's probably messing things up. I just got to be honest right there. That's a situation that's not good. And then, if you can't get the run game going, then that really makes it easier for the defense to defend the pass. If the front seven can get some pressure in there, like, the four rushers or whatever situation it is, if people can get in the backfield easy, then that gives a lot less time for routes to develop. And, you're looking at a bad situation in Philadelphia. They need to figure a lot of things out. I know it's only 2 weeks into the season, but they have probably the most head-scratching situation. Through 8 quarters this year, the Eagles have been held without a touchdown for 6 of them. That's just unacceptable if you're talking about the genius of Chip Kelly. And I'm an Eagles fan, and, the Eagles fans will turn on the head coach pretty quickly, especially with the moves that Chip Kelly made. I think a lot of people are like, we trust in Chip Kelly. And I think there's still some patience there because they understand that they're in a division where there can be patience. But the Eagles they have to do something. They need to mix things up. They need to find the right situation because otherwise they're just going to fall even further into, kind of second or third of this division. Washington Redskins, though, I'll tell you what, they have the best chance of going into a lead here to start during this break where, Whedon and no Dez Bryant are kind of plaguing the Cowboys and the Eagles need to get things figured out. The Redskins are 1-1. They actually are the only team that has quarterback depth. They have 3 pretty solid quarterbacks. I like Kirk Cousins. I like RG3, obviously. If RG3 gets another chance, I think he'll be ready to go. And Colt McCoy, I feel like he was actually better statistically, if I'm not mistaken, than Kirk Cousins. Colt McCoy is somebody who won that game against Dallas when Dallas was rolling last year on Monday Night Football. He got the call, and he went on in there, and he does what Colt McCoy does, and he wins. Colt McCoy is a good option right there, and if RG3 comes in, I think he would be the second-string quarterback. If Kirk Cousins goes down, they have a good situation. And let's talk about Matt Jones. My goodness, he's off to just a phenomenal start, the rookie. Alfred Morris is in the backfield with him. They have 2 really solid running backs. And then that helps out Pierre Garçon, and I really think that the Redskins have a chance to get an early jump on this division. They're 1-1. They're going to have the Giants coming in this week, so they deal with the Giants. That's not going to be too hard, honestly. The Giants don't scare me. The Giants are one of these teams that I'll get into them a little bit later, but I can say with confidence that the Redskins are going to be 2-1 come later this week. But now that's really the thing. We're in a weak division where the Redskins were just kind of like counted out at the beginning of the year, and now it looks like they might jump ahead to being in first place. Who knows? We'll keep an eye on that one because the NFC East is always an interesting one. That's kind of my bold prediction right now that the Redskins are currently, as it stands, the best team in the NFC East. I do like the Cowboys on paper a little bit better, but I think that it's really going to come down to the Redskins coming away with the best record over the next 4 weeks. Right now, as it stands, if everybody were to be reset at 0-0, I think the Redskins would probably have the lead going into week 8 or 9. So we'll see what happens there. We're obviously going to keep a close eye on that division because that's a popular division, as I was saying. New York Giants, though. Oh, my goodness, the drama that is the New York Giants. Y'all know that they paid Eli Manning $65 million guaranteed, $84 million over 4 years. Y'all know who their backup quarterback is? Because if I'm not mistaken, they haven't benched Eli. 2 years ago, Eli Manning led the league in interceptions. Last year, they got off to an 0-2 start as well. This is their third straight year with an 0-2 start. Typically, teams that start 0-2 are not good. For a reason, they are 0-2. They don't end up well. They're not going to make the playoffs. Third straight year last year that the Giants didn't make the playoffs. It's going to be 4 straight this year. Because you want to know why? They have a great core of receivers, and Eli Manning is throwing to them. Shane Vereen is a pretty solid running back, but Eli Manning is the quarterback. Why? I honestly, I know immediately anybody who is an Eli supporter will say 2 Super Bowl rings. This is a what have you done for me lately league. 2 lucky plays led to those 2 Super Bowl rings. And the defense was really good. The defenses were really good that year. They defeated probably one of the best teams to never win a championship in the 17-1 Patriots. And that was the last time that I think Eli's done anything really good. And I know this probably sounds a little ridiculous, but take away those 2 Super Bowl runs. Eli Manning is 0-3 as a starter in the playoffs. It's just the truth of the matter. I don't mean to, really get on the guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy and all of that, but let's be honest here. Eli Manning is not going to take you anywhere, especially now that he's on the decline of his career. Eli, good for you. I am happy for you. As an Eagles fan, I can speak for maybe the rest of the NFC East fans as well that aren't Giants fans. You get your money. You ride that 2 Super Bowl championship thing as long as you can, because you're probably still going to get paid for it after you're done playing. Because, 2 Super Bowl rings, obviously Peyton is the better of the 2, but, 2 Super Bowl rings is better than Peyton. Peyton only has that 1. There's a lot of quarterbacks who don't even win 1 that are better than Eli. Dan Marino didn't win a Super Bowl ring. We're dealing with a situation where Eli is just going to keep riding off that. I get it. 2 Super Bowl rings. Okay, does that mean you get to be terrible until you decide that you retire? Tom Coughlin's not even being held accountable for this. You build up some kind of crazy credit when you win 2 Super Bowls. That's what it is. They're using up all of their credit, and they're cashing in on that too. They're making as much money as they can, and they're going to stay standing pat. I really like Odell Beckham Jr. When Nelson Cruz comes back, that's going to be a good addition to the core. Shane Vereen's a solid back. The defense, I think the defense is actually pretty solid. I'd like to see Jason Pierre-Paul back out there. That's a weird situation in itself. I'd like to see how Pierre-Paul does without a finger and part of his thumb. But I really think that he'll be just fine. He had, I think, a $60 million over 4 years contract on the table before he had a firework blow up in his hand. Now they're just kind of saying, hey, we want to see how you do without your hand. And I think he's a little offended by that. But, oh, my goodness, I would be too. I would be like, hey, I'm fine. Give me at least a little bit of that money. They want him to sign that 1-year franchise tender. And I guess he doesn't really want to do that. We'll have to see what happens with Jason Pierre-Paul because that's just another mess in this drama that is the New York Giants. By the way, Ryan Nesbitt is the backup quarterback for the Giants. Pretty good player out of Syracuse. He had a winning career over there for the Orange, but you've never heard of him. I never heard of him. I had to look him up. Guy can play out of the gun under center. They're not benching Eli. I don't get it. They're not going to bench Eli anytime soon, apparently. They just gave him all that money. And he also, get this, best part about this, he has a no-trade clause. Eli Manning has a no-trade clause, as if someone's going to want to trade for that contract in Eli Manning. I'm not the biggest NFL historian, but I can tell you that is easily, just off the top of my head, guess, that is easily the most money guaranteed to a quarterback. I know this for a fact, actually. for a quarterback who has thrown the most interceptions in a season 3 different times. The crazy thing about Eli, actually, is the first 2 times that he led the league in interceptions, the next year he went on to win the Super Bowl. The Eli Manning luck has run out. He didn't win the Super Bowl last year. He didn't make the playoffs last year. And last year was the year following a year he led the league in interceptions. So there you go. I honestly feel like that's going to be the situation for the Giants. They dug themselves in a hole, and I honestly just don't get the obsession with Eli Manning. If his name were Smith, if Eli Manning were Eli Smith, and he weren't NFL royalty, football royalty, being part of the Manning family tree, Archie Manning's son, Peyton's brother, does he start in the NFL? Does he keep his job with the Giants? I don't think so. I really have to be honest with you. I don't feel that would be how the Giants would want it to work. They would be like, hey, sorry, Eli Smith, we're going to find someone else. We're going to find someone younger. They're not even putting pressure on this guy. They could have drafted Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel was the best statistical quarterback in SEC history. Cam Newton was selected first overall after he tore up the SEC. Johnny Manziel broke Cam Newton's record for the SEC total offense in 10 games. They played 12. He broke it in 10. They could have drafted him 16th overall back when Johnny was available and making that fall to pick number 22. Put a little bit of pressure on Eli. Do a little Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre situation. They decided not to. They continue to decide not to. I'll tell you what, though. The Giants, they're going to probably be last in the NFC East. They're probably going to be near last, if not dead last, in the NFL. And there's not really that many good quarterbacks in this draft. I like Jared Goff from Cal. I saw him over the weekend when he played Texas. He's impressive. He has good pocket presence. He can find an open receiver. Maybe they go after him. I think he might be the first quarterback taken off the board if he continues to have a solid year. Because that offense, they can put up points. He has good receivers too. But I think Jared Goff isn't necessarily the answer for the Giants. They might need to wait and see what the next class of quarterbacks comes up. Giants, they're a mess. But you know what? Now that I've ragged on them for, the past 6-7 minutes, I can tell you that Eli Manning is probably going to go on one of those winning streaks. Last year, they finished 6-10, and Eli Manning had 2 sets of 3 wins in a row that probably got him that contract extension that he's been fighting for all offseason and just signed recently. Like last week, I think it was, before the week 2 games, rather. Good for Eli. That's really all I have to say about that. The NFC East, it's a mess. And you know what? Like I said, the Giants, after I just kind of got on them, they're going to go on one of their lucky Eli rolls. It's not going to take them to the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised now that I've said all of that about Eli, that he goes on and makes me eat my words, and I come on one of these podcasts here in a couple weeks, and I'm just like, okay, Eli, you got me. But I'm going to be honest. Eli's not going to really be anything sustainable for the next 3-4 years. Why give him that contract? Make him earn that money. But I guess the 2 Super Bowls, he earns that money. Good for him. So that's the NFC East. That's the mess. See what happens. I honestly hope the Eagles figure things out because I think they have the most interesting set of talent. They honestly just need to figure things out with Bradford. I wouldn't be surprised if this week against the Jets, Mark Sanchez comes in. I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Sanchez started, honestly. I think Sanchez knows the system a little bit better. He might be able to do things a little bit better. Bring Bradford along slowly. I know he's probably the most talented quarterback on the – no, he's probably more talented than Mark Sanchez. In my opinion, he is. But we're talking about a guy who's learning a new system, as I said. So let's see what the Eagles do. Cowboys, they have the Falcons this week. The Falcons finish up they play the 3rd NFC East team in as many weeks. So the Falcons, they're looking to sweep the NFC East leg that they have going on right now. Redskins and Giants play each other, and that'll be kind of the start. It'll be an interesting few weeks of bad football in the NFC East. But I'm going to be watching it because you know what? It's a weird thing. All of a sudden I have nothing better to do on Sundays than watch football from noon until 9 and probably 10:30 actually, and then do it all again Monday. Find the time to do it on Thursday. I'm out there Friday nights broadcasting Eastview football here over in Gupton Stadium this week in Georgetown the rest of the season. That's just how it goes. I live in Texas. I'm a Texan. I love my football. Now we're going to go on to something that won't take as much time. Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson wants a lot of money. The fourth overall pick in the 2011 draft, I honestly haven't been that impressed by him. And he was offered and agreed to a 5-year, $80 million deal July 1st. When players and teams could start talking, about contracts. And here's my thing about that. I just kind of don't really feel like he deserves that 5 years, $80 million. But, he agreed with it. Good for him. Get your money. I just don't get why he's now, he looks at the rest of the people getting paid and he decides, you know what? I want the max. I can get the max. I'm gonna play hardball here. He has held firmly that he wants the max to the point where he has basically he hasn't signed a contract yet. This is the last week that he said, if you don't give me my max contract, I'm going to sign the qualifying offer, which teams have to extend the qualifying offer in order to make their first-round draft picks at the end of their rookie contract restricted free agents. So basically, if Tristan Thompson signed a max contract with, team with a lot of cap space that could do that, the Cavaliers this offseason could match. Next season, Tristan finds a team that's crazy enough to pay him the max contract he wants or somewhere around that $90 million. Cavaliers can't match it even if they wanted to. They can be like, hey, we'll pay you that. But if he signs that contract, that's how it goes. He's gone. In my opinion, I'm on the Cavs side here. $94 million for Tristan Thompson, just a bit too much. He was in that 2011 draft, and let me go through the players drafted after Tristan Thompson. Jonas Valanciunas, the Raptors forward, he's worth the contract extension he signed. I think it was somewhere around $70 million. Jonas is worth that. That's still less than Tristan Thompson. We go down a little bit more. Brandon Knight was in there. Kemba Walker, Jimmer Fredette. None of those guys are really significantly better or worse than Tristan Thompson. Obviously, Brandon Knight is kind of known as the guy that I think it was DeAndre Jordan. Yeah, DeAndre Jordan just destroyed that one night on an alley-oop. He's a 6'2" guard that kind of plays a combo guard, and he tried to defend a dunk against a dude that's 7'1" and athletic. That was what's going to happen. But Brandon Knight's actually a pretty solid player. I would say that I would take him over Tristan Thompson. He didn't sign anywhere near that kind of $94 million money. Klay Thompson was taken 11th in that 2011 draft. Klay's worth $94 million. I'd happily pay him that. I think he's getting somewhere around $15-16 million a year. So Klay signed that $70-80 million contract. Kawhi Leonard was 15th in that draft. Kawhi signed that max deal of around $90 million. I'd give Kawhi that max contract. Nikola Vucevic was 16th in that draft. Vucevic is one of the league's better-kept secrets. He's over with the Orlando Magic. He hasn't been an all-star yet, but he puts up all-star stats. He used to destroy the LeBron James Heat. He would always put up like 20 games against the LeBron James Heat. Iman Shumpert, he got paid his money, and I think that's part of why Tristan Thompson wants his offer boosted up a little bit. Tobias Harris, I don't think he's really signed a contract more than that $70 million, but he's kind of, I think he's better than Tristan Thompson. We can go on and on here. We even go down to Jimmy Butler, who was taken 30th in that draft. that's going to be something that, you have to look at right now. Tristan Thompson was the 4th overall player in that draft. He's wanting the max contract for what he was slotted to make, as the 4th overall pick for his first contract after, and that's 5 years, $94 million. Got to be honest with you, Tristan. Maybe if LeBron hadn't come back to Cleveland, you could have been having this upper hand, because Tristan Thompson is only 24 years old. He has tremendous upside, but that's because he has a lot of room for improvement. He can't shoot consistently outside of 10 feet. He doesn't have a jump shot. He's never shot above 70% from the free throw line. He's actually had his averages drop since LeBron came. LeBron actually being LeBron James, and, he plays well with LeBron. He's a good forward to work with LeBron. He's 6'9", 6'10", really athletic in a pick-and-roll league. He's probably one of the better defenders for the pick-and-roll. Got to be honest with you, though, Tristan. You're not really worth the $80 million that you were offered. I would take that money and run if I were you. Rich Paul, I know you like to play hardball. You're Tristan Thompson's agent. Take that money, because even though the salary cap is going to make a big jump next year, and Tristan might still get that $80 million from somebody, take it now, because what happens if Cleveland does something along the lines of, I don't know, not play you as much? Because he played all 82 games last year. He only started 15 of them. And I didn't quite do the research on this, but I'd be willing to bet that a lot of those were before the Timofey Mozgov trade, if not all of them. So, Tristan Thompson, you're sitting in a situation where you averaged 8 points and 8 rebounds last year. You didn't even average a double-double. And you want a max contract? You don't have a jump shot. Your best part of your offense is an offensive rebound. Tristan Thompson does not deserve a max contract. Yet he's seeking one. And I hope that, I'm actually always on the player's side. I hope he gets it. But let's be honest here. I can pull up the numbers, but there out of all the big men, the forwards and centers on that roster, Tristan Thompson would be sitting 4th or 5th, and you're talking about making him the highest paid out of all of them except LeBron and Kevin Love. Is it worth making him that highly paid? You're already paying Kyrie Irving. You're going to have to probably pay Timofey Mozgov if you want to keep him. Mozgov is only on the end of his second contract, where he's only making like $5 million a year. I'll pull it up right now, but no, you're not worth it, Tristan Thompson. It's a situation where you can play hardball, but you're going to lose. And, it could be another situation where the Cavs might trade you. Sign that qualifying offer. Go ahead. That means that Cleveland needs to look for a better option. Cleveland's already projected to be at around the $100 million on the salary cap. It's not pulling up on here, but I know all of this based off memory because I wrote an article on this on Rambling. Basically, Tristan Thompson wants some superstar money for a player who hasn't made the All-Star game. He hasn't really done too much before LeBron came in. When he was getting a lot of shots, he was averaging only, I think, 11.5 a game. He's never averaged a double-double. He was close. He averaged like 9-point-something rebounds the last 2 years before LeBron came. This year, LeBron James comes in. He increases his field goal percentage. That's about it. Tristan Thompson will get you a block and a steal every couple games. He might even have a couple good games. He'll defend a lot of shots. He's a good defender. He has upside. Like I said, he works on that jump shot. He works on maybe a little, jump shot and then a drive. He has some potential. He has a lot of potential. But potential is just a word for you ain't done nothing yet. That was the big thing. Andrew Bynum got a big contract. Kind of look what happened to Bynum. I think the Sixers paid him something like $35 million for 2 seasons, and he didn't do anything. Like, that's just not good policy. It's really kind of a rough situation here because you want to keep your players, and you can afford to keep your players. 2017-2018 season, that summer before, the Cavaliers are in a situation where they can maybe go after somebody if they play their cards right. And I think that's what they really need to do. Tristan Thompson, I understand you play well with LeBron. I understand that you're somebody that really works well with LeBron because you can play him at center with LeBron James. That actually helps because you're just going to have him set a screen for LeBron and then follow LeBron into the lane and maybe try and go for an offensive rebound, or LeBron will find him when he gets double teamed. But let's just say it how it is, Tristan. You're not really worth that money. And I think this is something that we only have to wait a little bit longer on, but we've waited all summer to see what would happen. So let's just see what happens. I'll definitely be updating you on this topic, but Tristan Thompson, not worth $80 million in my opinion. Take that because it's on the table if I understand it correctly. Don't go after the $94 million. Or really, next summer, a lot of people are about to be signing a lot of crazy big contracts. People even kind of already started signing those big contracts in preparation for next year. So, really, I think this is a situation where Tristan Thompson is kind of coming across a little bit greedy. You can't really fault these players for being greedy because their careers are only so long. And honestly, if they're going to pay Tristan Thompson 5 years, $80 million, there really isn't that much of a difference because they're going to basically take away that cap space I was talking about before the 2017 season. So I think that this situation, Cleveland needs to look into just letting him sign that qualifying offer and then looking for a trade for him because he'll get a lot of trade value back. You'll probably get a solid role player back for him. Maybe look for somebody that can last a couple of years. I haven't really looked into it, but he's going to get about $7 million if he signs that qualifying offer. There's a lot of solid players that you can trade for that have $7 million contracts. Honestly, go for it. I think that's a good situation for Cleveland to look for a trade because I imagine if they accept the qualifying offer, Tristan Thompson probably doesn't want to return to the Cavs because I can only imagine what these negotiations have been like. They agreed to something on the beginning of the momentarium when the NBA was doing its audits, and then, kind of like Andrew Bynum, they decide that they're not going to sign that contract. They want something else. And unlike, it's not Andrew Bynum, DeAndre Jordan, I should say. DeAndre Jordan, he decided to not sign with the Mavericks after agreeing to sign with the Mavericks. This is a different situation. Tristan Thompson was searching for somebody to sign to that offer sheet, but there wasn't really any takers. There's a reason for that. I don't think that one more year in Cleveland being, the third, fourth best forward, especially with Anderson Varejao coming back, will really up his stock any. If I'm Tristan Thompson, I take the $5 years, $80 million, laugh all the way to the bank. If you can make them bump up from that to come away from the $94 million, they're $14 million apart. Come away from the $94 million to accept $85 million. Oh, that's gravy. That makes that holdout well worth it. But Tristan, be ready for training camp. Training camp starts next week. You got to be ready for it. All right, that was the show, guys. Thanks for listening in here on YouTube or Rambling Sports, wherever you were listening in. I'm Karl Schoening. I think this was successful. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. It's only about a 40-minute thing, so I hope people like it. I'm going to close out with a little bit of Drake's new album that he dropped on iTunes the other day. It's kind of a good song here if you're a basketball fan. It's called Jumpman, and obviously Jumpman kind of refers to the logo for Michael Jordan, because that's what they call it, the kind of stretched legs, stretched arm jumping from the free throw line, called the Jumpman. So I'll just pick up in the middle of this song, and I'm happy you tuned in. Keep an eye out on Rambling Sports for any updates and the latest news going on in the sports world. we're not trying to be ESPN or anything, but I think we have a good little situation. If you're interested in writing for Rambling Sports, please let me know. Shoot me an email. It's ramblingsports1@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at ramblingsports1. We also have a Facebook page. Check it out. Like it if you're on Facebook still. I know it's kind of Facebook's kind of funny. Everybody has a Facebook, but not everybody really uses it. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, subscribe if you want. We're going to be using this channel. And good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.